Hello. So yesterday, Sushant Singh Rajput's news of his death sent shockwaves throughout the industry, bringing the focus back to mental health. So today have on the show Urvashi Govardhan, who is an actress from Bangalore and does a lot related to mental health. So welcome to the show, Urvashi.
Thank you so much, Anurag, for having me.
Yeah, so please tell us a bit about your journey so far, just to get things started.
So my journey has many aspects, but I limit it to the journey in terms of mental health. So I would say, looking back now, that I've had struggles with anxiety and depression since I was 14 years old, and it's very common for symptoms to begin around that age. I saw several psychologists here and there, on and off, when I was younger, when I was still in school, and then I moved to the US for college. And I think for the 7 years that I was in the US, 4 years of college and 3 years after that, my mental health just kept getting worse.
And what were
I
you
did have access
studying?
to some, I was studying computer science.
Okay.
So I was in a very competitive college also, and I had access to the college counselors, but I don't think it was enough. And then I started blaming my circumstances for my mental health. I said, okay, it's just the college stress, it's just the job stress, it's just, homesickness. And so I made all those changes, right? I finished college, I got a job, I moved back to India, I quit my job, and still that feeling didn't go away, which is when I thought, maybe I need to check whether I need medication or not. Because, if a psychiatrist tells me that I'm imagining it, then fine, I will work harder, try harder, do better. But I just need to know whether I'm imagining this problem or if it's real. So that was the first time I sought out a psychiatrist who can prescribe medication, and that was in 2017. So I've been recovering since then. So 3 years now.
All right, and you've been part of the showbiz industry. So you are an actor. So what was your first reaction to the news that was it able to sink in quickly? Like, an actor of that reputation, suddenly we come to know that he was struggling since 6 months, he was in depression. So what was your first reaction?
My first reaction, honestly, was, oh my God, not again. Because I've seen this happen with, we've all seen it happen with Anthony Bourdain, who was a celebrity chef, with Robin Williams, the actor. We've seen it. There was another designer that I used to follow, Kate Spade. She also committed suicide. So I have been seeing this like everybody else for so long, and it just felt like, again, like, how could it have happened again? And simultaneously you see people like Deepika Padukone and Sid Malya talking about their experiences and their struggles and how they got better. So I was just hoping that those conversations have started to make a difference. But just seeing the news about him felt like, we've taken 2 steps back.
Yeah, and absolutely. And it was shocking that after movies like MS Dhoni, he was out of work for 6 months. So since you are also a freelancer in this acting world, is the struggle to get work really so real in terms of, one tends to kind of overrate this entire glamour surrounding this media industry, the showbiz industry. Is there a lot of struggle inside which keeps you mentally traumatized in some way?
See, from a beginner's perspective, the analogy I like to use is, imagine that you have to do 5 interviews a week, and the job that you get is only for one day. And every interview that you go to has 200 other people who are attending, right? And you have to do that day after day after day. So as a struggler, you have no idea when your next shoot is going to be. You have no idea when you're going to get paid. There are some cases when you don't know if you're going to get paid. So those stresses are completely different than what a star goes through. From a star's perspective, I'm sure there are many factors that come into the picture in terms of getting work. So I'm sure he's gotten 1,000 scripts, but it's, what's a script that you want to do? What is a script that is going to be able to pay for you? What is a script that is going to make a difference, that's going to enhance your career, something that's going to make sure you don't get stereotyped? So you have to think about all those things. I mean, me as a beginner, I also think about, does this script portray women badly? Is this script going to perpetuate racism? Is this script going to further stigmatize some minority community? And if I'm thinking about that now as a struggler, there's so many repercussions to your film choices as a star. I can't even imagine how much conflict he was going through.
Oh, absolutely. So it is so nice that you've been candidly accepting the fact, because this industry also forces you to put on a lot of pretense. You have to fake success and fake it as if you're happy, you're smiling always. But on your YouTube channel, you have been a vocal advocate of the fact that it's not about being always happy, being always nice. You've been also advocating like things like body shaming. So without makeup, how do you look? And I think I must really commend you for that. In fact, I've been following you since long. So those things are, these are really some things which from the outside, once we go to a multiplex, we watch that movie. And you've acted in some movies yourself, have you? Or shows and advertisements. So once that final script comes, it is so nice. But beyond that, is there a lot of hard work? Do you at times really feel mentally traumatized? And you said about saying no to scripts when they don't meet the choices that you make in terms of the larger thing. And that also means risking being out of work. So then that leads to further conflict in the self. Hey, I am unemployed, and there is this work which is not in conflict with which is in conflict with my value system. What do I do?
I think there are many points which you mentioned that I'm going to try to address in no particular order. But I think the biggest fear for any actor is uncertainty. Now, especially if, like me, and there are others like me who have had 9 to 5 salary jobs, and you give that up and then you come into this freelancing gig, the uncertainty is what's most frightening. See, when you're a business owner, there is a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of personal risk, business risk, financial risk. But at the end of the day, it's your business and you're running it every single day. But as a freelance actor, you are at the mercy of a producer and a director. So even if you are the best looking person, the most talented person, maybe your language is not correct. Maybe you have the acting experience, you have the language experience, but you don't have the right look. And having the right look is not just about being the most beautiful. There are these categories that you start to see when people send you casting calls. You have to have a corporate look, you have to have urban look, you have to have a rural look, you have to have sweet mom nice look, young mom rugged look. Like, there are so many specifications. So it's like, you can be the most talented, most brilliant actor, but if you don't fit the director's vision and you don't fit the producer's budget, you're not going to get the role. So you have to sort of step away from rejection and understand that it's not because you are lacking a certain skill or a certain talent. It's just that you are not the right fit for that script. So reconciling all those variables that are not in your control and still doing it every day, day after day. And people like Sushant Singh Rajput have been doing it for years. He hit success after so much time, right? Like, people think, oh, overnight he became a success. No, overnight the movie released. But before that, they were probably shooting for 6 months. It was in post-production for 6 months. He was auditioning all throughout that time. He was probably working on some other shoots as well. So to us, it seems like he became an overnight success. But to him, it was probably just, years of hard work finally paying off at some point.
Absolutely. And you've been a vocal advocate also of the fact that we need to shed this social stigma surrounding depression. So tell us more about your views on this. Like, there is a lot of people don't want to admit the fact that they are depressed, because in hushed tones, people are going to say, "Arey, isko depression hai bhai. Batana." Maybe if you tell your employer, they're going to fire you from the job. So there's a lot of this, and that's really sad.
I think there's 2 levels to it. One is understanding and admitting that you might have a problem, because depression is not like physical pain, right? Like, if you physically injure your knee or your shoulder, you're going to feel that stabbing pain. But depression is like, it's like, you start having a headache one day, and then the headache doesn't go away. And then after 6 months, you get used to the headache. Then you sort of feel like, okay, life is like this only, it's fine. And then the headache just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing until one day you can't get out of bed. So it's such a slow process of falling into depression that it's really hard to recognize that you're going through it. So I think that's something I struggled with for years. I blamed external circumstances for years before I admitted that maybe I need help. So that is one level, is admitting that maybe you need help. And a lot of people think that you have to be suicidal, or you have to be hurting yourself, or you have to be crying every day in order to seek help. But that's absolutely not true. Losing a job, losing a relationship, losing a family member or a friend, each of these things is a valid reason to go to therapy. Even if you have no reason and you've just been feeling sad for a period of a month or 2 months, my psychiatrist says if there's a persistent feeling of sadness for more than 2 weeks, like for 2 weeks continuously you don't feel happy, then you should seek help. So that's one level.
The so like you wake up in the morning and say, why am I feeling so dejected? You feel so lost that you don't want to get out of bed. Is that the feeling which for 2 weeks, if someone has, is it depression?
you like nothing makes you laugh, nothing makes you happy. Like depression to me feels like, you can win the Nobel Prize and you'll say, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can also hear about a family member dying and you can think, okay, whatever, doesn't matter. But at the same time, that same depression that makes you numb to something else, if you like, if you're putting on your button and the button falls off, you'll break down and cry. So it's just it's a very different experience for everybody. It's a different experience every day. So reconciling the fact that what you're feeling is not normal and it's not okay and that you can get better is the first step. This log kya kahenge problem is a whole other situation, which, it as you said, it equates to crazy, it equates to, oh, she's problematic or they are problematic. But if you tell someone that you have chronic back pain, they'll say, oh, that's horrible, I hope you feel better. That's literally all you have to say to someone if they have depression. It's the same as any physical ailment. It is just because certain sections of your brain are not working the way they're supposed to. The same way when you have a muscle spasm or you have a joint problem, certain sections of your body are not working the way they're supposed to. That's it.
And I was just going through some statistics. Even during courtship, people don't disclose to their spouses that they're having mental issues, which further leads on to maybe divorce or something like that. And people are not wanting to tell to their employers that they have these issues for the fear of being laid off. What are your views on that?
In terms of relationships, I would say I have had my fair share of problems in relationships because of my mental health issues. But part of that is for me to fix and take responsibility and correct on my own for myself, so that I don't spill over to someone else. But then to the other person, you have to be willing to meet the person halfway. Like for me, for example, I have borderline personality disorder, which affects relationships quite a lot. So one thing that my psychiatrist makes me do is, if I'm starting to have a serious relationship with someone, if I've been with them for maybe 6 months or more, then he asks them to come into the session with me, so
What
that my
happens in this
psychiatrist can.
disorder?
Borderline personality disorder is a collection of many different things: suicidal tendencies, fluctuating self-worth and self-image, dissociation, impulsive behavior. It has a lot of different
So you're
symptoms
laughing at
that.
one time and maybe suddenly, during the conversation, only suddenly getting very impulsive and starting shouting at your partner. So those kind of things also
Yeah,
happen.
emotions are very touchy, but you can learn to recover from it,
So
which is
you
what
take
has
your
been
partner
happening for
also
me.
to your therapy sessions, is it then?
Yeah, so that's what my psychiatrist recommends. If you're with someone for long enough and you think that it's a serious relationship, then you can bring them in so that the doctor can help them understand where I'm coming from and help them equip themselves to manage if I'm having a bad day. Like if I'm having a panic attack or if I'm having an anxiety attack, what can my partner do for me? So a lot of people say, like, just feel better. Why are you screaming? Why are you shouting? Like, why are you crying? Just stop crying. Like, that's not going to help me when I'm having anxiety. But the doctor can equip the partner to say, if she's going through this, make sure you give her this medication, give her this water, make her lie down, put on the fan, don't say anything, let her cry it out. If you need something, call me, etc. They can give them a plan of action to do. Relationships with the employers, as you said, I think any employer that discriminates based on mental disorders is basically ableist. It's the same as denying someone a job because they're a pregnant woman or because they are in a wheelchair. So I think that is, when they say that they don't discriminate who they hire, this has to be included in that list.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of youngsters watch this particular show in the age group of like 18 to 30. And this is one challenging age today because of social media, the pressure to succeed, exams, you fail in exams, interviews, you don't crack interviews, and then personal relationship issues, there are breakups. So this entire generation, how does it cope with mental health issues? What would be your prescriptive uh, in terms of should they go for medical help soon? Because taking medicines also has its own share of problems, Urvashi, because you don't feel like getting up. Most of the psychiatrists, without doing some sort of a counseling, they straight away prescribe you some sleep medicines, which and I have experienced it myself. It becomes very difficult to even wake up from the bed the next day. So then what would be your prescription? One, from a thought process perspective, exam, stress, the rat race, money, fame, everyone of us wants it. And what do we do?
So there are two things that I've learned in therapy that help me with this sort of societal pressure issue. One is drawing your circle of control. So you have to be able to clearly differentiate what is in your control and what is not in your control. What is in your control is the work that you do, is the reactions that you have, the way you spend your time, the way you spend your energy. What's not in your control is how other people act, other people's success or failures, gossip about you, whether someone else is getting married or having kids or whatever it might be. Those things are not in your control. So you have to learn to focus on what's in your control. How are you spending today? How are you spending tomorrow? What are your long term goals? What are you doing to reach those long term goals? So that separation is one thing that helps. The other thing is called mindfulness, which is being present. Like, this is something that a lot of spiritual leaders talk about. It's talked about in a lot of spirituality books. It's basically, this is something that my doctor reminded me to do recently when I had a mid lockdown meltdown. Basically, he just said, when was the last time you enjoyed doing something? I said, no, I feel like I'm doing all these things that I should be doing. Like, I should be exercising, I should be dieting, I should be working hard, and I'm doing all those things. But I'm not doing anything that's just for the sake of feeling happy. He said, okay, just order whatever dinner you want today. Just take a break from your diet. Don't watch TV. Don't listen to music. Don't, distract yourself in any way. Just focus on the taste of that food in your mouth. Enjoy it. Focus on it. Remind yourself, about all these happy feelings that come with that moment. And you have to do that as much as possible in any given day. So usually all of us are bombarding ourselves with, there's music playing in the background, there's a podcast, there's a TV show. But take the time to, like, this is something I also struggle with. Switch that off and just pay attention to what you're doing, whether you're brushing your teeth or you're folding your clothes. Just be here and now, because that focuses your attention rather than allowing it to wander on 100 different things.
Yeah, and I am also sometimes, I get weighed by the burden of expectation. So I'll upload a video, and then the next 4 or 5 hours are just counting how many people have commented, how many views, have people shared it. And then the days it goes well, it is fine. But then if it is not, then it becomes a trauma. So how does one cope up with those kind of aspects?
So that's something I struggle with also, because, so much of my work is content related. For me, I just tell myself, if I have a photo or a video that does not hit that does not hit the average views, I tell myself, you know what, it's okay, because even if one person laughed, or even if one person gained something out of it, or even if one person commented or one person messaged me, that's enough. Because that is more than what I would have achieved if I had not uploaded the video at all. So one comment, one like, one message is still more comments, more likes, more messages than if I had just stopped uploading. And so that gives me the motivation to keep uploading.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you have to, reset your internal baselines, because society will say, Arey, you've uploaded a video, it didn't get views only. It was just 400 views. And then they will all the more. And I think society gets a sadistic pleasure in making us feel reminded about our failures. No, this role of society, what has been your experience? Because you've been into freelancing. So there would be like months where you've raked in a lot of money, and maybe like 2 months in a stretch, you've not got money. Then you would have then compared yourself with your salaried life in the US, maybe where you're drawing a fixed sum. And then even your own near and dear ones would have been said, hey, Urvashi, wouldn't you think you would be better off in the salaried world here? You're struggling every day. So then your internal self, how do you reconcile that thing?
So there's an old story about this, I don't know the exact details, but this sort of big shot businessman comes across a fisherman in a boat. And the fisherman is just lounging there in the boat, and he's chilling, he's minding his business. So this businessman goes and says, why aren't you working harder? So he says, I've got enough fish for today. I can feed my family. I can sell this much. I'm done. He said, okay, why don't you do more? Like, if you work even harder, you can get even more fish. Then you can, sell even more. You can make more money. So the fisherman turns around and says, okay, and then after that, what? He says, oh, then you can build assets and you can expand your business. And he says, okay, then what? Then he says, oh, then you can retire and chill and enjoy your life. The fisherman says, well, I'm already enjoying my life. So, I mean, what's the point? So that's something that I tell myself a lot, is that, maybe I'm not sitting on a beach, somewhere in Mauritius and reading my book, but I'm sitting in my room with the fan on and I'm reading my book, and that's fine. Because the people who are going to Mauritius and sitting there and reading their book, they have worked for 50 weeks to get 2 weeks off. I might have only 2 weeks of work, but I can use the other time to do things that I want to do. I'm not earning that kind of money. And of course, this is hugely dependent on privilege, because my family is not expecting money from me. I don't have a husband or kids to be taken care of. I don't have anyone who's financially dependent on me, which is why I have the luxury to give all this gyan. But still, it's like, if you have that luxury, then why force yourself when you're already happy?
And I think since your happiness is internally driven, then you kind of become immune to what log kya kahenge. Because otherwise, so their job is to make you feel bad, I think. So what can the final?
Also,
Huh? Yeah, please
sorry
continue.
to interrupt, but one
Yeah.
thing I forgot to add is, people will only put someone else down to feel better about themselves. Because if I get to put you down, then I am better than you. So that it only comes from a place, like for me, for example, Sonam Kapoor has no reason to turn around and say, oh my God, Urvashi, your videos are so terrible. Because she has no lena dena with my videos at all. But some random person who's never made a video in their life will comment and say, this is a terrible video. Because they want to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, so it's so much happens that person will say the background is not good, the lighting today was not fine, I was not able to hear it. And I say like, what man, you've never tried to go get up and do something. Yeah, that is what really. And so in terms of the regime, what does your psychologist prescribe in terms of exercising? And you said about mindfulness, which is a very good exercise that you just focus on the thing. And do they also prescribe like regular physical workouts to get you those positive hormones to cope up with this?
I actually have a stack of worksheets that is this thick, that I've accumulated over the 3 years that my doctor's given me for every situation. So if I'm feeling if I feel like I'm slipping into depression, like, 4 or 5 days without feeling happy, then I have a stack of worksheets for that. If I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling like my emotions are out of control, if I'm feeling like a panic is setting in, then I have separate exercises for that. So those are, I don't have a general solution, because everybody needs something different, because everyone's strength and weakness is different. So for me, basically, the main things are, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I meditate for, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I try to exercise every day because it helps me sleep. The positive emotions and the physical changes are a bonus, but I literally exercise only so that I can sleep well at night, because that lack of sleep is something that really, it just snowballs into the rest of my life. So those are the two main things. And I try to make sure I do a little bit of work and a little bit of chill time every day.
And one question, since you are a model, like my daughters also have, and they are young, but yeah, my 7-year daughter, she also wants to put up makeup to look good. And you can imagine my wife, she spent like half an hour when we go out to an event just to look good. So there is this entire pressure to look good. So how does one, and let's say you're not blessed with some great looks, and that can also be a reason for a lot of people to feel very low about themselves. Your quick take on that?
So as long as you're using makeup to feel better than how you're feeling, that's fine. But if you're feeling horrible and you're using makeup to feel neutral, then there's a problem. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you're happy and you're like, I just want to be extra shiny, and you want to put on makeup, that's fine. And celebrate your beauty and enhance your beauty that already exists. But you have to know and acknowledge that this eyeliner is, it's accentuating the beautiful eyes that I already have, or this foundation is enhancing how I already look. If you view makeup from that lens, I think it's perfectly fine. But if you are becoming dependent on makeup to say that I'm ugly without this, then that's problematic. You should be able to look at yourself in the mirror with or without makeup and still feel good. There's nothing wrong with dressing up. Everyone likes dressing up and feeling nice and, going out and feeling good about yourself, as long as it's not a crutch. Like if you're feeling like, you can't even open the door for a delivery person without having a full face of makeup, then maybe you should think about why you're using makeup.
And we have a lot of aspirants who take like the chartered accountancy exams, company secretary exams, or the CAT exams or an MBA, and let's say they're not able to crack it. Then how do you, gather that entire courage together for the next exam? Like it's like a slap in the face, right? A failure. And then people say, Arey, tum to padhte hi nahi ho, you don't study hard, and that is why you failed. So as a student, as a youngster, how does one cope up with that exam
So
failure?
it's like it's like learning any new skill, right? The first time you try to juggle. If you try to juggle 3 balls, you're going to drop it. It's okay, you're going to drop it the first time. I understand with exams you've been studying for months, but there is a difference between absorbing information and retrieving information. That retrieval of information skill set is completely different than the absorption of information. So maybe if you feel like you've studied so much and you know all this information but it just doesn't come out in the exam, then maybe you need to do more practice exams. Maybe you need to develop the skill of retrieving the information after you've absorbed it. Some people just get nervous in exams, right? Like there are so many different reasons why you might have failed. So it's more important to think about why you failed and make that correction, rather than view failure as a be all and end all. Like a failure in one exam does not mean that you as a human being are a failure. And this is some gyan that I give very freely, but I don't apply it to myself ever. But I'm putting it out there because I need to remind myself of this also. A failure of one action does not equal you as a human being a failure. So view it as something, one small thing that you did that went wrong, rather than you as a human being are wrong.
If you were to be, my final question, if you were to be put in charge of society, like the movie Nayak, where he becomes a chief minister for one day, to combat this entire epidemic of sorts, mental health, what would you do on that given day? This is my final question to you, Urvashi.
Every student and every individual that's employed in a company, every single person has to mandatorily go for therapy once a week.
Yeah, therapy is really, and you need to have a good therapy also, a therapist also, I must tell you. But
I
then
agree.
so there are some therapists that you think positive, to chill pill maro, yeah, don't take load. As if I have a very good pension. Na? I wake up in the morning and I take up pension. There are some sort of those kind of therapists also, but yeah, some good seasoned therapist is what can really make life different. Great. Thank you so much, Urvashi. You really shared your thoughts in a very candid manner. And for the ones who are watching this show and who've come so far, I mean, it's an attention deficit young generation, but if you've come so far, please go to her channel also. There's a lot more content on mental health that she's been espousing. And it's really wonderful to have you on the show, Urvashi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for considering me and for having me also.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.